The 6 key milestones of a standard process of a fee simple property for real estate agents, the key statutory and regulatory requirements by Group 34. As a real estate agent, it's your obligation to always abide by legal requirements and protocols while undertaking the process of the sale of property. Fee simple property specifically is generally the most common form of ownership in New Zealand. It represents an absolute ownership of land, giving the owner the right to do whatever they want to it. As a real estate agent, you will cover various aspects of the sale of fee simple property. For example, the acquisition and marketing, all the way through to the legal documentation, change of ownership and settlement. There are 6 key milestones in the standard process of a fee simple property that a real estate agent should go through while handling the sale of a property. These 6 key milestones are: number 1, engaging a vendor client; number 2, taking the vendor's property to the market; 3, receiving offers from potential purchasers; 4, entry into an agreement for sale and purchase with a selected purchaser; 5, payment of a deposit; 6, settlement of the sale of a property. These milestones are highly important in ensuring that all procedures are undertaken correctly and that nothing is forgotten or left out.
Step 1. Engaging a vendor client. It is important to go through the details of a property prior to listing it. You must have a written estimate or appraisal of the sale price, how you plan to market and sell the property, details on commission, and what the vendor will pay for example, extra marketing. Another essential step is to fill out an agency agreement, which is a legally binding contract between you and the vendor. This sets out all the terms and conditions. The layout and content of the agreement will vary depending on your agency, however it should include various details such as address, chattels, legal names, and the details of authorization. This is an essential part of engaging a vendor because it may help with dispute resolution and make sure that you're abiding by your legal obligations under the Real Estate Agents Act. Step 2. Taking the vendor's property to the market. Once the agency agreement is signed, you must now start advertising and marketing the property. Before listing it, however, it is important to know all of the specifications of the property, known as the checking of titles. Under the Best Practice Guide, it is essential that you obtain a copy of the certificate of title for property and use it to verify information on its ownership and legal description. When marketing and advertising, it is also important to know of any restrictions that may apply to a property. You must verify any claims that have been made by the vendor and disclose any defects under Sections 10.7 and 10.8 of the Real Estate Agents Act. You must be sure not to be making false claims to prospective buyers under 6.4.
When receiving offers, it is important to follow Rule 9.1 of the Professional Conduct, which states that a licensee must act in the best interests of a client. It is very important to communicate frequently to keep the client well informed of matters that are relevant to the client's best interest. As a licensee, you are responsible for providing all written offers of prospective buyers to the vendor. You must also act in good faith to both parties as stated in Rules 6.1 and 6.2 below. Upon entry to an agreement with a selected purchaser, you must 1. Notify all parties, include all particulars of the property into the agreement, ensuring all specific conditions have been written as well as any chattels, and finally, date and send the agreement to both the vendor and the purchaser. During this process, it is important to follow Rules 9.7 and 9.8 of the conduct as stated below. As an agent, you must also sign the SPA, which acts as proof that the agent has made the sale and is entitled to his commission. Unsatisfactory conduct can be seen in the case of Karen McDermott, when she misled the purchasers to believe they had a binding agreement to purchase the property and said that she would send the agreement to the purchaser's lawyer when the vendor had instructed her to hold the agreement.
Step 5. Deposit. Normally 10% of the purchase price. It is payable upon signing or upon the agreement becoming unconditional. If using the gold standard ADLS S&P, the deposit is refundable if conditions are not satisfied. Common practice is to pay the deposit to the vendor's realtor, since the REAA 2005 limits what can be done with the deposit. After being transferred, it must be held for 10 working days according to Section 123 of the REAA. This is referred to as the stakeholder period. If all goes well, the deposit shall then be transferred to the vendor with commission deducted. It is important to ensure that the licensee informs the vendors in a timely manner if they have not received the deposit. This can be seen in the case of Glennie Shirley, where the licensee engaged in unsatisfactory conduct by not letting the vendor know in a timely manner that the deposit had not been paid, resulting in the purchaser defaulting the S&P agreement right before the Christmas break. Step 6. Settlement. The settlement is when the purchaser receives the key for the house, becomes the official owner of the property, and pays the remaining balance, which is the purchase price minus the deposit, directly to the vendor's nominated bank account. The purchaser can now move in or rent the property. It is common practice in New Zealand to allow pre-settlement inspection by the buyer, which is done 1 to 3 days before the settlement date, to ensure the property is as expected and that the vendor has completed any works he was supposed to. Title transfer is done electronically by the solicitors involved, so don't worry about having to do that yourself. and the balance should be paid before 3 p.m. on the settlement date to avoid late payment interest.